So
Love it.
people say, well, when you're doing politics, you're in front of a legislature, you don't want to mention that. No, of course I'm going to mention it. Like, people want to know who I am. You're going to know Jesus's influence on my life, period. So one of the things that I've had to do because of that is develop what I call a political theology. I don't think you can separate them. So here's the way I would describe that. Number one, I always look to 1 Samuel 8. And I'm not very good at quoting scripture, so I'm just going to give you a summary from my perspective. 1 Samuel 8 is where Samuel goes to the Lord and says, Lord, I screwed up. And these Hebrews, they want a king just like everybody else. And they want to be just like everybody else. And I'm so sorry. And the Lord says, not your fault, Samuel. You're a good dude. Your son's not so good, but you're a good dude. And what I want you to do is give them what they want. Give them exactly what they want, but let them know it's going to suck. They're going to hate it, right? Because the king is going to take their sons to be his warriors. He's going to take their daughters to be his perfumers, basically to be his concubines. He's going to take 10% of their crops, the best of their crops and their livestock. They're going to cry out to me, and they're going to hate that, and I won't hear their cries because all I did is give them what they asked for. In my experience, Jeremiah, when God gives you what you're asking for, that's usually the greatest punishment, right? And so that's what he says. So I think that's our time. I think we live in a time where we're looking to government like, oh, we want government to do everything for us. We want a king. We want it to make our decisions for it. We want us to make sure that that the king provides us with food and money and security, that he fights our wars for us, all of that stuff. And I think that's bad. And I think we have to make a decision as Christians in politics. What do we want? Do we want the king, which we have just by believing, or do we want a king? And for me, I want the king. So I think we're in a 1 Samuel 8 moment, and we have a decision to make as a nation. Second, I look at Romans 13. And when I first read Romans 13 says that we are to obey the governing authorities. And I hated that because I don't like obeying authority.
Right.
I'm a rebel. Like, I like to blow stuff up. I like to fight. I don't like to listen to when people tell me to do stuff. And so I found that really disturbing. And I remember doing Bible study around that, working with my friend Tim, talking about it. And he said, look, I think you're misunderstanding this. And so he had me read some stuff and go out and do some research. He said, who do you think the governing authority is in the United States? I said, I guess you could argue it's the three branches of government, Congress, the Supreme Court, and the president. He said, that's wrong.
Yep.
The governing authority in the United States is you and me, right? It's we the people. We're in charge of the United States. And I said, okay, well, that's good. So that means if the government's doing bad stuff and not listening to us, they're in big trouble, right? And he said, wrong. He said, if we're in charge, they're not doing what we tell them, and we don't throw them out, and we don't force them to do what we want and to be righteous and to follow biblical law and be good people and do the right thing, then it's on us. We are the sovereigns here on earth in the United States of America, according to our system of governance. Mm-hmm. And so those are my bookends of my political theology. It's up to us, every individual as a self-governing individual, their family, their school, their church, their temple, their community, their state, their country. It's on me. It's on you. It's on all of us. And then the other end is we got to decide, do we want a king? Do we want an all-powerful, almighty government just like everybody else, or do we want to follow the king? So that's the bookends of the political theology within which I live out my political life.